What's going on? It's the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hope you had a nice weekend. Colts win, IU wins 5-0, first time since 1967. They're ranked today. Just a good football weekend through and through. But a couple weeks ago, wasn't like that. You guys remember when the Colts were 0-2 and the world was about to end? Now, 2 weeks later, that same Indianapolis Colts team is 2-2. They're one of 13 teams right now that are 2-2. Could be 14 after the Miami Dolphins play and hopefully beat the Tennessee Titans tonight. The Colts being 2-2 means they might be a playoff team. There are moments where they look like a playoff team, and there are moments where they look like they should have a top 5 pick. And you just never really know which one is going to show up. The first 2 weeks, they looked like a team that deserved a top 5 pick. These last 2 weeks kind of look like a playoff team. They kind of look like a playoff team. And a large part of that is the improved run defense that we've seen in these last 2 games. I'm going to get to the Joe Flacco, Anthony Richardson thing here in like 3 minutes. But very quickly, I want to address the improvements that this defense has made. The first 2 games of the year, the Colts gave up 474 rushing yards. Just unacceptable. That's terrible. Then these last 2 weeks, they've given up 185 rushing yards combined. The overall output is lower, but the yards per carry is way down. The first 2 weeks, they gave up over 5 yards a carry against the Texans and the Packers. And then these last 2 weeks, they've only given up 3.1 yards per carry. That is so much better. The run defense against the Steelers was good. Once again, they gave up 4.1 yards a carry, but they didn't give up any explosive runs. The Steelers had 2 runs of 12 yards. Those were their longest runs of the day. And the secondary continues to play well. Jalen Jones had a couple big pass breakups. The pass rush continues to have an impact, even with all the injuries. Large part of that is Leatu Latu. He's played really well so far as a rookie. They had 4 sacks yesterday. Should have been 5, but, they had that roughing the passer call on that first possession. But either way, Gus Bradley has done a fantastic job these last 2 weeks turning the run defense around. And he's done a good job the entire year of keeping this inexperienced, young, very little talented secondary contributing. And hopefully this continues on as the year progresses. Before I got into Joe Flacco and why he shouldn't be the starter, I very quickly wanted to address this defense that's been playing hard all year and has, especially the secondary, and has been the reason why the Colts have won these last 2 games. Now, very quickly before I get into Joe Flacco and whether or not he should be the starter, Anthony Richardson has to slide, man. We all know that. The play where he gets hit in the hip is so annoying because he had the first down. A mission accomplished. Then he decided to challenge 2 defenders and he took a helmet to the hip. Just slide. Pick up the first down and then go down, please. Here is Indianapolis Colts head coach Shane Steichen, who was very excited after the Colts win yesterday. Here he is talking about whether or not Colts quarterback Anthony Richardson needs to slide a little bit more.
Yeah, I'll go back and look at that tape. But obviously, we want him getting down on those situations. But there's some situations where it is kind of awkward and guys are coming around and sometimes you don't have time to slide. So I'll go back and look at the film on that one.
Yeah, this wasn't one of those times, Shane. Shane's going to go. Shane Steichen, Colts head coach there. He's going to go. He's going to look at the film. He's going to be like, geez, Anthony, you got to slide there. Seriously, Anthony Richardson, you have got to get down. The offense is so much better when you're in the game. And this Anthony Richardson injury leads me to the biggest story from this Colts game yesterday. Joe Flacco got to play. And as soon as he came out, I know there were some Colts fans that were just over the moon excited. Like, yay, we get to play the 39-year-old quarterback. Oh, I can't wait to see what this 39-year-old who can't move can do. And I know some of you fell in love with what Joe Flacco did yesterday. 16 of 26. That's only a 62% completion percentage. 168 yards. Oh my gosh. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Oh, I know some of y'all are just loving you some Joe Flacco. He was so amazing. This is all sarcasm, by the way. He was so amazing that you forgot about the opening 8-play touchdown drive led by the one and only Anthony Richardson to open the game. Joe Flacco was just so amazing that you forgot that the second drive, of which Joe Flacco had a touchdown pass on, you forgot that Anthony Richardson was actually the one who moved the Colts down the field. He moved the ball into Pittsburgh territory before he got hurt, right? Then obviously he came back in after a Joe Flacco completion and a decent Jonathan Taylor run. And for some reason, Shane Steichen was like, hey, our starting quarterback just got hurt. Let's run him again. Then Richardson, he goes to run. He says that he wasn't accelerating like normal, so he tried to go down. Micah Fitzpatrick hits him anyway. Should it have been flagged? I don't know, probably, but hey, whatever. Before Anthony Richardson got hurt, we were seeing peak Anthony Richardson, Shane Steichen offense. The offense was churning out chunk plays, averaging over 10 yards a play. When Anthony Richardson was in the game, it was chunk play after chunk play after chunk play. They were throwing the ball down the field. Jonathan Taylor was running the ball efficiently. Anthony Richardson was running the ball efficiently. It looked like an elite offense that first drive and a half before Anthony Richardson got hurt. Even though the offense looked great with Richardson on the field, though, we're going to forget about that. And we're going to talk about Joe Flacco, the 39-year-old Super Bowl MVP. That's what someone said to me on Twitter yesterday. Super Bowl MVP Joe Flacco. Yeah, that was 11 years ago. He is not the same guy. If he was, then, he wouldn't be a backup in Indianapolis. He'd be starting somewhere. Some people, despite seeing how awesome the Indianapolis Colts offense looked to start that game with Anthony Richardson in, some people are going to opt for Joe Flacco, and they're going to vouch for him to be the starter. No way. Those people who call for Joe Flacco to be the starter, those are the people that go on the same beach vacation every year. They opt for the boring, safe option instead of going, to an amusement park and riding some roller coasters, or going skydiving in Europe, or hiking the Grand Canyon. Instead of going out, seeking adventure, doing different crazy things that create memories, instead of doing that, they opt to sit on a beach for a week, maybe read a book, sleep in, listen to the waves, like they always do. This is what my parents did. This is what my parents always wanted to do. My parents love the beach. They do. And I'll never forget the first time we went. It was cool. I'd never seen the ocean, boogie boarded, did all that kind of stuff, played in the ocean. It was fun. Had a blast. Don't remember much of it. Don't have very many memories from it, but I genuinely remember having a good time. But every year we went back, after that first time, I was bored out of my mind. It was no fun whatsoever. I have one memory from going to the beach, and it was the last time I went. My dad cracked his ribs playing two-hand touch football with me and my two other brothers. It was funny. I threw an absolute dot. Outside shoulder, right? My dad jumps, 3 inches off the ground, catches it hard in his chest, and my older brother, in order to, put him down, touches him with two hands, more like pushes him while my dad's in the air. He turns, parallel to the ground, falls, lands on the football, cracked his ribs. It was like the first day that we were out there. My dad was out of commission the rest of the time. That's the only memory that I have, because going to the beach was always a consistently boring vacation. It was a consistent vacation. I knew what we were going to do every day. I knew no one was going to be mad. I knew we weren't going to leave and be like, that vacation was terrible. Okay? I knew that. It was consistent, but it was consistently boring. I don't have any memories. And that's who Joe Flacco is. He's a consistently boring vacation that for the first couple weeks will be fun because the Colts haven't seen consistent, competent quarterback play since Phillip Rivers in 2020. At the end of the day, though, that consistently boring Joe Flacco isn't going to create any memories Colts are going to be like 10-7, 9-8. They might sneak into the playoffs where they'll lose in the first round of Buffalo or Baltimore. And then that's it. Okay, I guess we're going to do this again next year. No, you're not going to do that again next year because Joe Flacco is going to be 40. Okay, and then 20 years from now, you're going to think back on the history of the Colts, and you're not going to have any memories from this season. You'll remember that this year happened. You'll be like, yeah, we went 9-8, 10-7, whatever, but you won't have any memories. That is why Joe Flacco cannot be the starter for the Indianapolis Colts. It's a path that leads to nowhere. It's a path that leads to more mediocrity. Sure, it'll be nice the first couple weeks. I'll be honest with you. When Joe Flacco hit a couple third and fourth throws for first downs, I got a little excited. I was like, that's nice. That's nice. But ultimately, the Joe Flacco route leads to nowhere. It leads to, at best, a first-round playoff exit. Meanwhile, instead of opting for something boring like a beach vacation, the Colts could opt to create some memories. And they could start Anthony Richardson, which is what they're going to continue to do. Oh, but what if Anthony Richardson's terrible? What if Anthony Richardson sucks? Do you know who's awful, worse than Anthony Richardson has been to start this year, the first year that they were a starter? Peyton freaking Manning. And you remember that year very well. You remember Peyton Manning's rookie season because he was incredibly awful. But also because it set the Colts up for long-term success. That first year of Peyton Manning was awful. Set the record for most interceptions thrown in a season. Okay? He was terrible. Okay? That first year was awful. Just like the first time you decide to not go on that boring beach vacation and go out and have a little bit of adventure, there's going to be some rough patches. My wife and I, for our honeymoon, we went to Asheville, which is currently underwater. Hopefully the people out there are okay. Okay? So my wife and I, for our honeymoon, we went to Asheville. We went glamping. We made some mistakes. Okay? We ate at some terrible restaurants. Got lost on the drive in. Dealt with some wildlife that we didn't really want to deal with. But despite the rough start to that honeymoon, we ended up having a great time. We're going to go back at some point when it's not underwater. And the next time we go, we won't make the same mistakes. Just like how with Peyton Manning, he made all those mistakes his rookie year. Made all of them. But his second, third, fourth, fifth, all the way through his final year in the league, he didn't consistently continue to make those mistakes. This is part of having a young rookie quarterback. There are going to be bad things that happen. That's just the reality of it. And the truth of the matter is that if the Colts want to make memories, they want to set their franchise up for long-term success, then Anthony Richardson is the guy that they have to roll with. And I think they will. Joe Flacco. Also, this is also the really important thing. Joe Flacco going 16 of 26 for 168 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions isn't going to win many games. 6.5 yards per attempt isn't enough offensively to score points. Joe Flacco, when he was in the game, also didn't move the ball. He didn't move the football consistently. Let's look at the Joe Flacco drives. The drive where he comes in where Anthony Richardson got hurt. Anthony Richardson had already moved the ball into Pittsburgh territory. Okay, and then they wind up scoring a touchdown. His first full drive came after the Steelers turned the ball over on downs at the Pittsburgh 39. Once again, Joe Flacco starting the drive in Pittsburgh Steelers territory. Joe Flacco was unable to capitalize on the good field position. The Colts had to settle for a field goal. Then the Colts had 3 straight punts. Matt Gay then missed a field goal on, the 5th possession that Joe Flacco was out there. And the only reason why the Colts were in field goal range is because the Steelers fumbled the ball and the Colts started the drive at the Pittsburgh 42. Once again, Joe Flacco unable to put 6 points on the board despite starting the possession with good field position. The Colts would finally add another touchdown on a 70-yard drive that Joe Flacco was 4 of 9 passing on, and that likely would have ended in another punt if it wasn't for the Minkah Fitzpatrick unnecessary roughness call on A.D. Mitchell. To Joe Flacco's credit, he did hit Alec Ogletree for a touchdown on that drive. Then the following possession, the Colts kicked a field goal, in large part because of Jonathan Taylor's 21-yard run that put them in field goal range. The Colts only threw the ball twice on that drive. Shout out to the offensive line, which was once again great for the Indianapolis Colts. Then on the final drive that didn't, conclude the end of the game, the Colts went 3-and-out. Joe Flacco did not move the football. There was one possession where he moved the ball, and a large chunk of it came off of a Minkah Fitzpatrick unnecessary roughness call. Joe Flacco didn't move the football. Whereas the drive and a half that we saw Anthony Richardson, the offense averaged 10 yards a play, and they were marching the football down the field. Anthony Richardson was throwing it well, 3 of 4 for over 70 yards passing, and they were running the crap out of the football. That is the other thing that differentiates Anthony Richardson from Joe Flacco is the run game. No matter who the quarterback is for the Colts, whether it's Joe Flacco or Anthony Richardson or me or you, it is imperative for the Colts to be able to run the football. Okay, because as we all know, Anthony Richardson's just not consistent enough to win a game with his arm alone. And Joe Flacco isn't winning a game with his arm alone. The Colts have to run the football well in order to win football games. And the Colts ran the ball better yesterday with Anthony Richardson in versus with Joe Flacco in because of the threat that Anthony Richardson provides when he runs the football. When Anthony Richardson was in the game, the Colts averaged 5.9 yards per carry when they ran the football. Versus when Joe Flacco was in, that average dropped to 3.5 yards a carry. The threat of Anthony Richardson's ability to run the ball elevates the offense. It does. That is a large part of why they moved the ball so well when he was in the game. Okay, because when he's in the backfield and he's with Jonathan Taylor, the defense has to account for both guys. And this is an important element of the offense that Joe Flacco can't and never will be able to fill. Anthony Richardson has to be the starter this year for the Colts. He gives them the best chance to win, and he needs to continue to develop. This will not and should not be a controversy. I would be stunned if the Colts sat Anthony Richardson for Joe Flacco at any point this year. And hopefully the Colts are going to have Anthony Richardson for their Week 5 game on the road against the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're going to need him to play well because, as we all know, the Indianapolis Colts never win in Jacksonville. Here is Anthony Richardson after the game talking about his hip.
I'm feeling a little sore, but, feeling good. We got the W today. Great execution by everybody on the field today. I think I'm going to be good. Just a little soreness.
Just a little soreness in the hip, according to Anthony Richardson. Hopefully, that's the truth. Hopefully he's just a little sore. I'm sure he woke up today a little bit more sore. Taking a helmet to the hip is not fun. Surely, though, if he's just sore, the next 6 days of, little to no contact should be enough time for him to recover. Hopefully he can, because the Colts aren't beating Jacksonville in Jacksonville with Joe Flacco as their quarterback. They need Anthony Richardson in order to do that. Now, I've been wrong on some things this year. It happens. I come on the show. I give takes. I got no issue being wrong. It happens. But there is something with this Colts team that everyone, you, me, Dan Dockich, the media, insert person here, that every single person was wrong about when it came to the Colts. I'm going to tell you what that thing is when we come back here in 4 minutes.
The best takes, stories, and entertainment. It's The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hope you guys are having a nice Monday, Victory Monday, after the Indianapolis Colts did their thing, beating the Pittsburgh Steelers. Joe Flacco coming in, doing just enough to keep the Colts from squandering the lead. Didn't move the football hardly at all. But, there's still some ignorant people out there who think he should be the starter. It's honestly laughable if you have that opinion. Something else that was laughable before the season started was the secondary. And I'm going to do this probably once every 4 weeks. I would like to recap the storylines of the season. What have been the concerns after every week? And how have those things kind of held up over time? So during the offseason, what were the questions? What were the concerns around this Indianapolis Colts team? The secondary was going to be terrible. There was no depth on the back end. How good was Anthony Richardson going to be? Could he stay healthy? These were all of the questions. And then we come out week one. Colts host the Texans. Anthony Richardson had some incredibly high highs, but he had some bad misses, right? Anthony Richardson, week one against the Texans, lived up to what I think everyone expected. Missed some layups, but also hit some awesome shots down the field. Either way, the Colts scored 27 points, which is usually enough to win in the NFL. The issue was the Colts' run defense was atrocious, but the secondary held up. They lose 29-27 at home. Even though they lost, I didn't think people were overly concerned after week one. And then week two, they go on the road. They play the Packers. No Jordan Love. Everyone thinks that this should be a game that the Colts win. Then Anthony Richardson was awful. Probably his worst. It was his worst game as a pro. Run defense continued to be awful. They lose 16-10. And then everyone thought that the sky was falling.
Everyone run for cover! SOS! Mayday! Mayday! Code red! Duck and cover! The sky is falling! The sky is falling!
Sky was falling. The Colts were 0-2. They weren't going to make the playoffs. Anthony Richardson's terrible. Defense is terrible. Fire everybody. That's what everyone was saying after week two. And then week three, Colts host the Bears. Jonathan Taylor was awesome in that week three win. The defense finally stopped the run. But the win didn't feel like the Colts won week three against the Bears because they were good. It felt like the Colts won week three against the Bears because the Bears were bad. Okay, and through it all, through these first 3 weeks of the season, the secondary was consistently good. And then this week, Colts handed the Steelers their first loss. The run defense was good once again. Gave up 4.1 yards a carry, which is a little more than you want. But they didn't give up any big, explosive runs. The Steelers had 2 rushes of 12 yards. Those were their longest runs of the day. And through it all, the secondary continued to play well. Justin Fields had an okay day through the air. Nothing crazy. And that's it. He was also sacked 4 times because this Colts pass rush has also been extremely consistent all year long. I say all this to point out the glaring fact that I and everybody else was wrong about something. And look, when I'm wrong about stuff, I've got no issue telling you. I thought the Jags were going to win the AFC South. They're 0-4. That's not going to happen. They'll be 1-4, though, because they host the Colts next week, and the Colts never win down there. Anyway, when I'm wrong about stuff, I've got no issue admitting it. This Colts secondary all year has been good, contrary to what everyone thought was going to be the case coming into the season. We sat back, we looked at the secondary. It's like, I don't know. Nick Cross hasn't been very good to start his career. Juju Brents was fine last year as a rookie. Is he really good enough to be, our best corner? He gets hurt a lot. He's hurt again. Our second corner is Jalen Jones, a 7th-round pick. Secondary, a lot of questions coming into the season, but the secondary has been good. Nick Cross has played well, and his good play continued this last week. He was 3rd in tackles for the Colts. He's doing a great job coming down from that safety slot and defending the run. He's done a decent job, not a great job. He's done a decent job, though, in pass coverage. Jalen Jones has been the Colts' best cornerback this year, and that's been a good thing. Coming into the season, if we had heard that Jalen Jones was going to, second-year corner out of Texas A&M, was going to be the Colts' best corner, we would have been very concerned about everything that was going on with the Colts defense. But he's been good. He's had a couple big pass breakups. The 2-interception game against the Bears. Jalen Jones has been good, and that's been a pleasant surprise. We were all highly concerned about the Indianapolis Colts secondary and their pass defense coming into the season. And they have been, them along with the pass rush, have been the most consistent part of the Indianapolis Colts defense this season. Now, look, it's early, still very early. We've got, 12 or 13 games left. So there's plenty of time for this narrative to change. But as of right now, Colts secondary is held up. At what point do we give Chris Ballard credit? At what point do we give Gus Bradley credit? We've ripped, the fans, have ripped have ripped Chris Ballard and Gus Bradley all offseason, right? Because these past couple years, the pass defense just hadn't been very good. Okay? Gus Bradley running the same defense every single week. It's like at some point, is he going to make any sort of adjustment? He has this year. We've seen him make the adjustments in season. Okay, we ripped him all off season because this Colts, secondary has been nothing short of terrible. They have. And we ripped, Chris Ballard for not going out and addressing the needs on the back end of the defense. And while I'm still concerned every time that teams drop back and throw the football, they've held up. And at some point, we have to give Chris Ballard and Gus Bradley their due for that. Okay, probably not yet because, it's only been 4 games, right? They haven't exactly played any elite quarterbacks quite yet, right? You could argue C.J. Stroud. You could. He's pretty good. But Malik Willis, not a guy who's going to tear you up. Caleb Williams, although he eventually will be, he's currently not quite there yet in terms of, being one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. Played Justin Fields this last week. They haven't played any great quarterbacks yet, and they don't until they play, I guess, the Vikings and Sam Darnold, who's been awesome this year for them. Vikings 4-0, one of the 3 undefeated teams remaining. Seattle Seahawks play tonight. We'll see if they can also stay undefeated. But secondary has been good. At some point, we have to acknowledge that, and we have to give them the credit that they deserve. They've been good. Who else deserves credit? The Indiana Hoosiers, 5-0 for the first time since 1967. Probably going to be 6-0. They played Northwestern on Saturday. They're a good football team, and I talked about them a bit last week, and I just continue to get excited to watch the Indiana Hoosiers play football. It's pretty incredible. I never thought that there would be a day where I was like, you know what I can't wait to do on Saturday? Can't wait to sit down on the couch where I've created a nice little groove for myself, and I can't wait to watch the Indiana Hoosiers play football. Never thought that I'd say that. Okay, and Saturday was an awesome day. So was Sunday. A lot of good football games on Sunday. That 1 o'clock slate for the first time, not in what feels like all year, because usually the 1 o'clock slate is just littered with bad quarterbacks. But for the first time, though, the 1 o'clock slate was really good. A lot of good things happening. Commanders are rolling. The Broncos won. My over bets for the season on the Broncos and the Commanders look good. Look great, honestly. So great weekend of football. I'm going to talk about the Indiana Hoosiers. Their 5-0 start. Kurt Signetti, they're ranked 23rd. I'm talking about them when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Unadulterated sports talk with unfiltered takes. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to tune in. No matter how you're tuning in, whether that's on YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on Twitter, follow the station there at Ticket 1430 for all your updates on my show and the Dan Dockett Show. You can also follow me there as well at __ Jonathan Smith. You can listen to the show via the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you get your apps. Or maybe you're just listening on the radio, 1430 a.m. in the Indianapolis area. Coming up here in like a couple weeks. It's not really even that far away. Big events for Indy's Sports Ticket. You can join me, Dan Dockich, and the rest of us here at Indy Sports Ticket on Saturday, October 26th, less than a month away, at Back Nine for Bourbon and Birdies, presented by Payless Liquors. Get your all-in ticket today to enjoy unlimited bourbon and food samples. Get an hour in a bay, knock around some golf balls. If you haven't been to Back Nine, you're missing out. Imagine just a better version of Topgolf. That is what Back Nine is, and it's even better because there's going to be bourbon and there's going to be food, and it's going to be great. Heaven Hill, the official bourbon of Bourbon and Birdies, will be on hand. Also, Birdie Brown Straight Wheat Whiskey and Tom Bullock's Burnt Orange Bourbon will be there as well. Get your tickets right now. Head over to IndySportsTicket.com so that you can grab those tickets. It's going to be a great time. I'm excited to go. I got to be honest, I'm a homebody. I don't like going anywhere. I don't like seeing people. I don't like talking to people. But this is an event that I am truly excited to get out there and enjoy. Speaking of enjoying things, I had a great time on Saturday. Like I said, I like to stay home. I like being alone where no one can really bother me. And I love my wife, but my wife is not like that. My wife is just go, 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 go. She's doing something all the time. And, I don't really mind it because it allows me to just kind of hang out and just kind of do my own thing. So she was gone. She was up at Purdue this weekend. She's a part of some alumni board thing. And so she was up there for that. So I'm at home. I'm just watching football. And I'm watching the Indiana Hoosiers football team be good at football. It was great. Great. Good win. Not a great win over Maryland. They're now 5-0. The Indiana Hoosiers are. They're ranked 23rd in the country. And the Indiana Hoosiers have a legitimately good football team. They are so much fun to watch. Curt Cignetti, what he has done in such a short amount of time has been incredible. Utilizing the transfer portal, bringing some of his guys from James Madison over and, pulling in different guys from all over the country. He has very quickly turned this thing around. Now, that being said, they haven't played anybody great. Okay, but you can only play who's on your schedule. And luckily for the Indiana Hoosiers, they haven't played Michigan yet. They haven't played Ohio State yet. I believe that those are their only two really kind of tough games for the season. And they are once again, legitimately good football team. And they are so much fun to watch. I love watching their defense play because their offense, let's just be honest here, didn't exactly help them out a ton on Saturday with the 4 turnovers, but it didn't matter because that defense, man, swarming dudes, played so incredibly well. They get a pass rush. They rally to the football better than almost every other college football team. Like when there's a tackle made, there's like 7 other dudes around the football. They are fast. They're physical. They get off blocks. They block well. They tackle well. They are a good football team that is just fun to watch. And they beat a Maryland team that is the best team they've played all year. 42-28, despite turning the football over 4 times. Usually, if you turn the ball over 4 times, you lose. That's usually what happens. Okay, ask any football coach ever. If you commit 4 turnovers, you usually lose pretty handily, but not the Indiana Hoosiers against a Maryland team that coming into this game, people kept telling me was pretty good. 42-28 against a pretty good football team after turning the ball over 4 times is impressive. Now, obviously, Indiana can't continue to turn the ball over like that if they want to keep winning. But that wasn't an issue until this game. Okay, they hadn't committed a turnover until Saturday when they committed 4. So this is something that will be cleaned up. Curt Cignetti, good coach. He's going to help clean that up. He is. I have all the faith in the world in Curt Cignetti. Okay, they came out against Maryland. They were very well prepared. And yeah, man, it's fun to watch. It was fun to watch. 5-0 for the first time since 1967. Could be 6-0. Should be 6-0 in all honesty. After they play Northwestern on Saturday at 3:30. I want to see if I can find the line on that. They usually put that stuff out relatively early, but they should be favored by a lot. They should be, because Northwestern is a awful football team. They're awful. Yeah, Indiana's favored by 14. The over-under on that game set at 42.5. If you want to bet the money line, you can bet $600 to win 100 if you want. Hey. So IU, Northwestern Saturday should improve Indiana to 6-0. They'll be bowl eligible, which anytime you're a new head coach taking over a program, unless you're, Kalen DeBoer at Alabama, who, they had a great game on Saturday too. Unless you're at a program like that following a legend, if you can become bowl eligible in your first season, that's a great first year. Curt Cignetti pushing all the right buttons there at Indiana. Now, another big story from the weekend, something that we've all been worried about coming into this Indianapolis Colts season, has been Anthony Richardson and the injuries. This is something that we've been worried about. This was, one of the offseason storylines. I was recapping the storylines from the season earlier. Okay. The secondary was going to be terrible. That was a concern. Lack of depth on the back end. How good was Anthony Richardson going to be? And most importantly, could Anthony Richardson stay healthy? And once again, 4th game of the year, Anthony Richardson tucks the football and he runs it. And he was asked after the game, Anthony Richardson was, on whether or not he should start sliding more.
I don't know. It's football. Some people may say I do. Some people may say I don't. But I don't know, man. It's just football. I'm just trying to play.
He's just trying to play, guys. Anthony Richardson there talking about whether or not he needs to slide more. The answer is obviously yes. Right? The other, I think, obvious answer here is that, the Colts should probably not run Anthony Richardson the first play back after he got hurt. Maybe just an idea there. I still can't believe that Shane Steichen made that call. It's incredible. But Anthony Richardson has to start sliding. It's, I wouldn't say the most important thing for him, but it's one of, right? The most important thing that he has to develop is his accuracy, as we all know, especially on those short throws, even though he was ripping it so well on Sunday before he got hurt. But the accuracy has to improve, but so does the decision-making. Okay? Week 1 against the Texans, putting the shoulder down at the 3-yard line, trying to get in the end zone, please do that. But first quarter, second drive against the Steelers, he takes off, picks up the first down, just go down. No need to take that hit. And I appreciate what Shane Steichen said. Here he is talking about Anthony Richardson sliding.
Yeah, I'll go back and look at that tape. But obviously, we want him getting down on those situations. But there's some situations where it is kind of awkward and guys are coming around and sometimes you don't have time to slide. So I'll go back and look at the film on that one.
Yeah, he's going to go back. He's going to look at the film and be like, Anthony, you have to slide. And I appreciate him trying to create some sort of excuse for Anthony. Sometimes things happen fast and there's bodies around and you don't have time to slide. But when you just ran 14 yards, that's how many yards he picked up on the play. There wasn't a moment there where he could have slid. He couldn't have picked up the first down and then just gone down. You can't convince me that wasn't an option. And it's really disappointing because this seemed like we were going to get the great Anthony Richardson experience. He came out that first drive, man, and was just on the money. That ball that he threw to Michael Pittman Jr., yeah, that ball wasn't going to be intercepted. He threw that ball over the Steelers defender and put it only where Michael Pittman Jr. could get it. And to his credit, he went up, he got it, big chunk play. The offense is moving. Okay, he's going to get there. I can tell. Anthony Richardson's going to get there at some point. We just have to have the patience for it. And more importantly, because let's be honest, it doesn't matter if we have the patience or not. It's really more about the Colts and whether or not they do. Most importantly, though, he has got to stay healthy. He has got to stay healthy, right? There's the old cliche, the best ability is availability and all those things. And, as cliche as it is, it's incredibly true. It's hard to get better at football if you can't play because your hip hurts. Okay. I just slide. It's so easy. It's so easy. And we've seen him do it. He slid against the Texans. I can't remember if he slid against the Packers or not. He didn't against the Bears, but then again, he didn't run a ton against the Bears. But this offense, I've talked about it, I feel like ad nauseum this year. The Colts offense is so much better when he runs the ball, right? And we saw that on that opening drive. It seemed like it was going to be a game where they were, a little more dependent on Anthony Richardson running the football. He's averaging 6 carries a game if you take out the kneel downs through the Colts' first 3 games of the year. In that first drive and a half, Anthony Richardson already had 3 carries for 24 yards, like big chunk plays, and he was playing so well, right? But then he gets hurt, and it doesn't matter, and it's wiped from our memory, and now all we remember is Joe Flacco not pushing the ball down the field and not moving the football, and now people want him to be the starter. It's just ridiculous. The other thing that has to be acknowledged about what the Colts did on Sunday, the plan that they had for TJ Watt was awesome. Braden Smith goes out there, banged up, barely practiced the week prior. He goes out there, faces arguably the best edge rusher in the NFL, and just shuts him out, man. Not, all on his own. They were chipping him and doubling him and giving Braden Smith help. But, man, he was so good. TJ Watt had no impact on that game. You didn't hear his name called at all. He had 2 tackles. That's it. They stonewalled TJ Watt. This offensive line for the Indianapolis Colts just continues to be the strength of this offense. Another thing that we have to give Chris Ballard credit for. Okay? No Kelly. No Ryan Kelly playing center. Okay, instead, they go to Tanner Bortolini, rookie out of Wisconsin, playing center, and was awesome. The Colts offensive line didn't miss a beat. Okay, Bernard Raynor played really well at left tackle. Okay, Quentin Nelson continues to be one of the best guards in football. Will Fries has been great this year. Okay, the offensive line for the Colts they've been so freaking good. Creating running lanes, protecting Anthony Richardson, right? Protecting Joe Flacco yesterday for the little bit that we saw him. They have been incredible. And I think that yesterday was their best performance. It was their best performance. They give up 2 sacks. Okay, but they completely stonewalled TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, a guy who's been doing it in the NFL for a long time. He didn't have a great day. He had a good day, but he wasn't great. I felt like the Colts offensive line kept, Richardson and Joe Flacco incredibly clean for the most part. And then, of course, the Colts continued to run the football well. Jonathan Taylor, 21 carries, 88 yards, averaging over 4 yards a carry. He had the touchdown. He had the big, long 21-yard run that set the Colts up to kick a field goal late to go, to score 3 more points and have 27 points. Big run there from him. And it doesn't happen without the Colts offensive line doing the dirty work and blocking well. Okay. Great job from the Colts offensive line on Sunday. Great job from Leatu Latu. I thought he played incredibly well. He's the guy that I watch, whenever he's on the field, because I know that we get caught up in numbers and stats and we want to be able to go and look at things, but playing defensive line, just numbers don't really pop up for you. When we look at the best edge rushers in the NFL, they the best one has 19 sacks on the year. That's just over a sack a game. And so you really have to watch and see how defensive linemen perform in the games to figure out whether or not they're worth anything. And if you look at Latu, if you were to just look at the numbers, you'd be like, oh, he had one tackle and he had a pass deflection and he had one quarterback hit. Sure, but he was in the backfield consistently applying pressure to Justin Fields. Okay, Latu, even though the numbers aren't there and the sacks haven't come yet, they're going to, because he consistently gets back there. He consistently generates pressure. He has been so good. And I'm so glad that the Colts took him 15th, given all of the injuries that we've seen to this Colts defensive line throughout the offseason. Okay. No Kwity Paye, no Ibukam. Like there are injuries on this defensive line, right? They're having to play Isaiah Land because of all of these injuries. Okay. Daiwa Dangbo's getting a lot of snaps. He had 1.5 sacks yesterday. He played well. This Colts defense, especially in the trenches on both sides of the ball, like this is why they've won. Okay, the defense has done a good job of forcing turnovers. They forced, I believe, 2 more yesterday, if I remember correctly. Or they just generated a bunch of, two fumbles, the one from Justin Fields and the one from George Pickens down in the red zone. Like, this defense is why this Colts team continues to win, and it's been a lot of fun to watch. Hopefully this can continue. At some point, we have to credit Gus Bradley at least a little bit. At some point, we have to credit Chris Ballard at least a little bit for the roster that they've assembled, and Gus Bradley for the defense that he continues to coach and help improve, right? Because this Colts defense has gotten better from the first 2 weeks in the year compared to now, and that happens because of coaching, right? So at some point, we got to give Gus Bradley his due. This Colts defense just continues, or I'm not going to say continues. They have showed up these last 2 weeks. They need to show up again on Sunday because, as we all know, they're going to Jacksonville on the road against the Jags. They haven't won there in forever, right? So that defense has to continue to show up. They have to pressure Trevor Lawrence, who's off to a horrendously bad start this season. Colts offense, that offensive line just continues to protect and create a push when running the ball. The trenches for the Colts are a large part of why they keep winning, and that's Chris Ballard's philosophy. At what point do we give him credit for this 2-2 start? When we come back here in about 4 minutes, people want to credit Joe Flacco, and those people are wrong. I'll tell you why here in about 4 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for...
It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hour number 2 on a Colts and Indiana Hoosiers victory Monday. The Colts are 2-2. 2-2. Do you remember when the Colts were 0-2 and the world was about to end and everybody should be fired and Anthony Richardson should be traded or cut and Joe Flacco should be the starter? I remember those days, but that was 2 weeks ago. Now the Colts are 2-2, and they could legitimately be a playoff team. They could. There are moments where they look like a playoff team. And then there are moments where they look like they should have a top 5 pick. You know, the question is, which one of those two teams are we going to get as the year progresses? Still a lot of season left. We got 13 more games. Okay, 14 more weeks. Okay, and looking at the improvements very quickly before I talk about why Joe Flacco shouldn't be the starter, the biggest difference from these first 2 games to these last 2 games is clearly the run defense. The run defense has been so much better. First 2 weeks of the season against the Texans and the Packers, the Colts gave up 474 rushing yards. That is 237 rushing yards a game. You're not beating anybody if you're giving up that many yards on the ground. And then these last 2 weeks against the Bears and the Steelers, they gave up only 185 rushing yards. Much better. The overall output is lower. But more importantly, the yards per carry is down. First 2 weeks against the Texans and the Packers, the Colts were giving up over 5 yards a carry. These last 2 weeks, they've only given up 3.1 yards per carry. That is so much better. The run defense against the Steelers was once again impressive. They gave up 4.1 yards a carry, which is a little higher than what you'd want, but they didn't give up any big explosive runs. The Steelers had just two. Their longest rush of the day was 12 yards. It happened twice. That's it. No big explosive runs. That's important. The secondary continues to play well. Okay, at some point, we got to give Gus Bradley some credit here. Jalen Jones had a couple big pass breakups. The pass rush continues to have an impact despite all of the injuries. Gus Bradley has done a good job these last 2 weeks turning the run defense around. Chris Ballard was right so far. Like I said, a lot of season left. He was right so far to trust in this young secondary, to trust that guys would develop. Nick Cross and Jalen Jones have. Hopefully this continues as the year progresses. Okay, moving to Joe Flacco, which hopefully he will not play anymore this year. Quickly on the Anthony Richardson injury that led to this Joe Flacco drama, even though there's no drama whatsoever because if Anthony Richardson's healthy and he can play on Sunday against the Jaguars, he's going to be the starter. Anthony Richardson has to slide. Simple as that. We all know it. He had the first down on the play where he gets hurt by Minkah Fitzpatrick taking a helmet to the hip, right? And so he scrambles, picks up the first, and then he was like, you know what I should do? I should try to run over both of these defenders. He takes a helmet to the hip. It seems like he's got a hip pointer, which isn't fun. It's like, just slide after picking up the first down. Just slide. This has been a talking point all season long. So you know that Shane Steichen, Colts head coach, was asked about Richardson and whether or not he should have slid in that moment.
Yeah, I'll go back and look at that tape. But obviously, we want them getting down on those situations. But there's some situations where it is kind of awkward and guys are coming around and sometimes you don't have time to slide. So I'll go back and look at the film on that one.
Yeah, that was Shane Steichen there talking about Richardson needing to slide. He's just being nice. Sometimes there are situations where you can't. No. This was not one of those times. Shane Steichen, you're going to watch the film, and you're going to be like, Anthony, you got to slide there. He picked up 14 yards on the play. He couldn't have picked up 10, gotten the first down, and then just went down. You really want to tell me that wasn't an option? Because it clearly was. But Anthony Richardson doesn't slide. And then we get to see Joe Flacco. And he's the biggest story from this Colts game yesterday, which is a little annoying because the reason why the Colts won this game yesterday was because of the turnovers that this defense forced. But I have to talk about Joe Flacco because I know some of you have been calling for Joe Flacco, right? We should play Joe Flacco. That's what some of you have been saying. You've been wrong. And I know some of you, definitely the people that have been calling for Joe Flacco, you sat back and you watched him and you just fell in love with him. 16 of 26, which really isn't that great. 168 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. And you're like, oh, that's our guy. That's the guy I want playing quarterback for the Colts. The guy who can't really push it down the field. The Colts had a couple opportunities at big plays where Joe Flacco left the ball a little bit short. He underthrew a couple. Oh, that's the guy who can't move. 2 sacks because of his lack of mobility. And yeah, man, that's 16 for 26, 168 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions. That's just, that's the stat line of a god, apparently. That stat line was so good. Joe Flacco was so amazing that we just forgot about how great Anthony Richardson looked in that game. You forgot about the 8-play, 70-yard touchdown drive that Anthony Richardson orchestrated. Second drive, the drive where Anthony Richardson got hurt. He once again had the offense rolling. He moved the ball into Pittsburgh territory, and then he got hurt. Okay, Anthony Richardson looked good to start that game. He was pacing to have the best Anthony Richardson game that we've seen this year against arguably the best defense in the NFL. But then he decides not to slide. He gets hurt, and now we have to talk about Joe Flacco. Come on now. And I appreciate Anthony Richardson trying to play after he got hurt, coming back in. Right, 2 plays later, Joe Flacco had a completion, and then Jonathan Taylor had a rushing attempt. And for some reason, Shane Steichen's like, you know what we should do? After our starting quarterback just got hurt, we should run the football again. And then he got hurt, and he didn't play the rest of the game, which sucks. I think we were poised for a big Anthony Richardson game just based off of how he started the game. The offense was averaging over 10 yards a play with Anthony Richardson in the game. Every throw he made was incredibly accurate. And I know, that one ball that he threw to Michael Pittman Jr. should have been picked. If you go back and you look at the all 11 view, or the all 22 view, like I have, guess what? That Pittsburgh defender wasn't close to picking that ball off. It was just a perfectly thrown pass from Anthony Richardson to put it outside the reach of the defender. And for Michael Pittman Jr. to still be able to make a play on it, he did. He went up, he caught it, big chunk play. Anthony Richardson was rolling. The Colts offense was rolling with him in the game. Chunk play after chunk play. They were throwing the ball down the field. They were running the football efficiently. Jonathan Taylor picking up 6-7 yards on the ground. Then Anthony Richardson coming back and picking up another 8. It looked like an elite offense with Anthony Richardson in the game before he got hurt. Against, once again, arguably the best defense in the NFL. And if you don't think that the Steelers have the best defense in the NFL, then it's probably the second or third best. It looked like an elite offense that first drive before Richardson got hurt. And even though the offense looked great before he went out, some people are still going to opt for Joe Flacco. Some people are still going to be like, yeah, but we want the 39-year-old immobile guy. And these people go on the same beach vacation every year. Okay, the people that want Joe Flacco, they opt for boring and safe options, right? So when they go on vacation, they go to the same beach every year, whether it's Destin, Orange Beach, maybe Myrtle Beach. I don't know. Same one every year. Instead of doing something a little bit more fun, doing something that creates a little bit more memories, like going to an amusement park and riding roller coasters, or going to Europe, right? Or hiking the Grand Canyon. Instead of doing something fun and adventurous, something new that creates memories, instead they opt to sit on a beach for a week, read a book, I don't know, maybe get in the water a little bit, watch cartoons in your condo or whatever. That didn't sound very fun. This is what my parents always wanted to do. Okay, and I'll never forget the first time we went, it was cool. I'd never seen the ocean. We had a blast, right? Boogie boarding, all that kind of stuff. But every time we went after that, I was bored out of my mind. Okay? Of all the times that my family and I have been to the beach, I have one memory. That's it from going to the beach. It was when my dad cracked his ribs playing two-hand touch football with my brothers and me. I threw a dot. He jumped in the air, caught it. My older brother, touched him with two hands. He really more shoved him. My dad, goes parallel with the ground, lands on the football, cracked his ribs. He was out of commission the rest of the week. That's the only memory that I have because it was a consistently boring vacation. And that is who Joe Flacco is. He's this consistently boring vacation that for the first couple weeks will be fun because the Colts haven't really seen competent quarterback play since Phillip Rivers in 2020. He's going to complete that 3rd and 4 pass, and we're all going to get excited. I don't want to lie to you. Sunday, I'm sitting back. He completed, this, like a little out route on 3rd and 4, and the Colts picked up a first down. I was like, that's pretty cool. I like that. That was fun. But at the end of the day, it's not going to create any memories. It's not. The Colts are going to finish the year 10-7, maybe 9-8. And that's it. Like, they might make the playoffs. And if they do, it will almost surely end in them going to Buffalo or Baltimore and losing in the first round. Like, if Joe Flacco's the guy going forward, that is what the Colts will be. Boring. Again. And go 9-8 or 10-7 again. Oh, but Jonathan, we'll make the playoffs. Who cares if you get bounced in the first round? Like, seriously, come on now. Like, that doesn't mean anything. Seriously. Like, when it comes to IU basketball, if they made the tournament and lost in the first round, nobody would care. It's the same thing with the Colts. If they go 10-7, they're the 7th seed in the AFC and they lose in the first round. Who cares? Seriously. And then in the future, when we think back on the history of the Colts, we'll remember that this year happened, but there will be no memories whatsoever because nothing great happened. And that is why Joe Flacco cannot be the starter for the Colts. It is a path that leads to nowhere. Sure, it'll be nice these first couple weeks, seeing him complete 3rd and 3 on his own 30. It'll be nice. But who cares? Ultimately, if the Colts play Joe Flacco at quarterback this year, they don't progress at all. It is a route that leads to nowhere. So they could opt for the boring beach vacation that they've been on every year for the last 5 years with this revolving door at quarterback and consistently being average. Or they could opt for something other than the boring beach vacation and create some memories. Oh, but Jonathan, what if Anthony Richardson's terrible? What if he's not very good? Do you know who is awful? Worse than Anthony Richardson has been, actually, to start his career in his first year as a starter? Peyton Manning. And we all remember that year incredibly well. Okay, you remember that year incredibly well because it set the Colts up for long-term success. That first year of Peyton Manning, that rookie season, I don't have to tell you, you remember it. You have memories of that first rookie season because they were awful. And more importantly, he was awful. Peyton Manning was. He was terrible. Okay, but we remember that year because it set the Colts up for long-term success. Just like the first time you opt to not go on that boring beach vacation, like there's going to be some rough patches. My wife and I, for our honeymoon, we went to Now Underwater Asheville. Hopefully the people out there are okay. And we went glamping. And there were some rough spots. I won't lie to you. We ate at some bad restaurants. We got lost because the glamping grounds were like up in the mountains and we didn't really know how to get there. And it was rough. There were some mistakes. We dealt with some unwanted wildlife. Okay, but despite the rough start, we ended up having a blast. Okay, the next time we go, because I'm sure we'll go back at some point because that place is awesome, we won't make the same mistakes. Just like how with Peyton Manning, in that first season, in his rookie season, he made a ton of mistakes. And he didn't continue to consistently make them over the course of his career. This is just part of having a young quarterback. You have to put them out there, and you have to deal with the mistakes that they make. And if the Colts want to make memories, if they want to do more than just go 10-7, make the playoffs and lose in the first round, if they want to make the playoffs, win the division, host a home playoff game, if they want to do something like that, then Joe Flacco is not the answer this year. The answer is Anthony Richardson. He's the guy to roll with, and I think that they will roll with him. Because if you're really honest with yourself, you know that Joe Flacco going 16 of 26 for 168 yards and 2 touchdowns isn't going to win very many games. 6.5 yards per attempt, which is what Joe Flacco averaged, isn't going to do very much damage. And ultimately, you have to consistently score points in the NFL if you want to win games. Here's also the really important thing to remember about Joe Flacco on Sunday. He didn't move the ball. The Colts offense, when Joe Flacco was in the game, was stagnant. The possession he entered the game on, Anthony Richardson had already moved the offense into Pittsburgh Steelers territory. His first full drive came after the Steelers turned the ball over on downs at their own 39-yard line. So, Joe Flacco, blessed with great field position. 39 yards to the end zone, that's it. And Joe Flacco was unable to capitalize on the good field position, and the Colts had to settle for a field goal. The Colts then had 3 straight drives where they punted. Then, Joe Flacco's 5th drive on the field, Matt Gay missed a field goal. And the only reason why the Colts had any chance at kicking a field goal is because the Colts recovered a fumble on Pittsburgh's 42-yard line. Once again, Joe Flacco did not move the ball when he was on the field. And twice, the Colts defense did their job, gave him great field position, and he was unable to put the ball in the end zone. It's not good. The Colts finally added another touchdown on a 70-yard drive that Joe Flacco wasn't very good on. He was 4 of 9 passing on that drive. And they likely would have had to punt again if it wasn't for the Minkah Fitzpatrick unnecessary roughness call. To his credit, he found Alec Ogletree in the end zone for a touchdown. Okay? The Colts kicked a field goal on their next possession, in large part because of their ability to run the football. Jonathan Taylor's 20-yard run is what put them in field goal range. The Colts only threw the ball twice on that drive. Shout out to the offensive line there for generating some offense because Joe Flacco couldn't do it, and he didn't do it all day. Then, on their final drive, an opportunity to put the Steelers away, what did Joe Flacco do? He went 3 and out. Joe Flacco did not move the ball when he was in the game. He didn't move it at all. Okay, the only time he was able to put 6 points up on the board was because of a dumb penalty by the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the other times that he was able to score was because of the defense putting him in an advantageous position where they were able to kick a field goal. Congratulations, Joe Flacco. You didn't do very much. The other thing that differentiates Anthony Richardson from Joe Flacco is the run game. No matter who the quarterback is for the Colts, they have to run the ball well. If I'm the quarterback, if you're the quarterback, if Joe Flacco's the quarterback, if Anthony Richardson's the quarterback, whoever it is, like the Colts have to be able to run the football efficiently. Because Joe Flacco isn't winning a game alone on his arm. Joe Flacco's dropping back, throwing it 30, 35 times. The Colts aren't going to win. Simple as that. And yesterday, the Colts ran the ball better with Anthony Richardson in versus than when Joe Flacco was in. They did. When Anthony Richardson was in the game, the Colts averaged 5.9 yards per carry when they ran the ball. When Joe Flacco was in the game, the Colts averaged 3.5 yards a carry. That's not very good. The threat of Anthony Richardson running the football elevates the offense. It does. Okay? Because when when the quarterback is a threat, it helps your offense. I mean, we saw it with the Ravens last night, right? Like Lamar Jackson and his ability to run elevates everything that the Ravens do because the defense has to account for him. It's the exact same thing with Anthony Richardson. Not saying he's Lamar Jackson, not saying he's as good as Lamar Jackson, but the threat of him running is very much there. And it is part of why they move the ball so well against, once again, one of the, if not the best defense in the NFL in the Pittsburgh Steelers to start that game. And as much as you love Joe Flacco, I know some of you guys out there are smart enough to know that Anthony Richardson needs to be the starter. As much as some of you love Joe Flacco, though, you know that he can't fill that important element that Anthony Richardson does. Anthony Richardson has to be the starter this year for the Colts. He not only gives them the best chance to win, but he also needs to continue to develop. Okay, and I get it. I get just as frustrated as you do when Anthony Richardson sails a ball on 3rd and 4. Okay, I get it. It's frustrating. It's annoying. It's not fun when he does that. But when he scores points, it's pretty great. When he moves the ball like he did against the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday, it's pretty great. He gives them the best chance to win. Simple as that. And he needs to continue to develop. And the good news, great news, I would say, is that the Indianapolis Colts aren't dumb. The Indianapolis Colts have somewhat of an idea of what they're doing. So this will not be a controversy in any way, shape, or form. It won't be. Okay, if the Colts went away from Anthony Richardson at any point this year, where Anthony Richardson's healthy and they just were like, you know what, we're gonna go with Joe Flacco, I'd be shocked. And at this point, based off of Anthony Richardson's comments after the game yesterday, I'm assuming that Anthony Richardson is going to be the starting quarterback for the Colts based off of what he had to say about his hip injury after the game yesterday.
I'm feeling a little sore, but feeling good. We got the W today. Great execution by everybody on the field today. I think I'm gonna be good. Just a little soreness.
He thinks he's going to be good, just a little soreness. That was Anthony Richardson right there talking about his hip injury. Hip pointers aren't fun. I've heard Julian Edelman got one in the Super Bowl, and he's got a decently good podcast that I'll tune into from time to time. And he was talking about it. Hip pointers suck. They're not fun. He made that pretty apparent. Anthony Richardson took a helmet to the hip. I'm assuming he's got a hip pointer. He'll be sore, but surely 6 days of little to no contact should be enough time to help him recover. Plus, look, he's young. Young people just recover from injuries a little bit quicker. If he was like 39, 40, if this was Aaron Rodgers or whoever, then there'd be some means for concern. But Richardson's, 21, 22. He should bounce back relatively quickly, and I'd be surprised if we didn't see him on Sunday against the Jags, which is a good thing because he gives the Colts their best chance to win. Now, there are things that I've been wrong on throughout this year, and that's going to continue. When part of the job is giving takes and saying what you think is going to happen, and sometimes you're going to be wrong. It's just the way that it goes. I wasn't wrong very much this weekend. All my bets hit except for 2. So had a pretty good weekend gambling, which is always fun, but something that everyone was wrong on. Everyone was wrong on coming into the season for the Colts that needs to be addressed because it's been good this year. It needs to be addressed. It has to be. I'm going to tell you something that everyone was wrong on to start the year for the Colts when we come back here in 4 minutes.
More winners, more often. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy's Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hope you had a nice weekend. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in. It's greatly appreciated. Colts, IU, each picking up big wins over the weekend. I'm going to talk Indiana football here in about 10 to 15 minutes. 5-0. Look good. They're a good football team. Said it last week. I was excited to watch them play on Saturday. Watched every snap. Had a blast. It was great. Colts yesterday. Big win. Big win. It's not even a controversy. There's just some ignorant people out there who think that Joe Flacco should be the starter, and that's just ridiculous. But I want to move away from the quarterback talk here for a second, because there's an area of this Colts team that everyone, especially me, was wrong about. Coming into the season, there were some concerns, right? And every team has concerns coming into the year. I don't care how good or bad your team is. And for the Colts specifically, we were worried about the secondary being terrible, how there was no depth, how good was Anthony Richardson going to be, and could he stay healthy? These were the four questions coming into the year. And I like to keep track of storylines for the Colts over the course of the season, and every now and then I'm going to go back, revisit them, and talk about how things have changed. So week one, Anthony Richardson comes out, incredibly high highs. Colts scored 27 points, but the defense, especially the run defense, was awful. Okay, gave up over 200 yards on the ground. Joe Mixon had a day. Colts lose 29-27. Week two, Colts lose to the Packers because Anthony Richardson was awful, right? And the run defense was terrible, and they lost 16-10, and everyone thought that the sky was falling and the world was going to end. And
run for cover! SOS! Mayday! Mayday! Code red! Duck and cover! The sky is falling! The sky is falling!
that's what Colts fans sounded like. A little Chicken Little there. Great movie. But seriously, that's how Colts fans reacted after week two. Colts fell to 0-2. People freaked out. Anthony Richardson should be cut, traded. Joe Flacco, please. Gus Bradley, fire him. Fire everybody. That was the Colts fan base after week two, after they started 0-2, right? Because, and look, it was somewhat valid, right? Colts defense was bad. Anthony Richardson didn't play very well. Felt like a game that the Colts should win since Jordan Love didn't play. People were freaking out. Then week three, Colts grabbed their first win. Jonathan Taylor was great. Offensive line was great. They were. The defense finally stopped the run. But the win, week three over the Bears, felt more like the Bears were bad versus the Colts were good. Right? And through all that, the secondary continued to play well. Right? And then this week, week four, Colts beat the Steelers, hand them their first loss of the season. The run defense was good. Again, only giving up 4.1 yards a carry. They didn't give up any explosive runs. The Steelers had 2 runs of 12 yards, tied for their 2 longest rushes of the day. The run defense was once again good. EJ Speed was awesome. Okay, Zaire Franklin was good. The secondary continued to play well. Justin Fields, he threw for 300 yards, but I don't know. I felt like a lot of that was just off of a couple big plays down the field where George Pickens just made a really good play. So, and that was really it. He was also sacked 4 times because this Colts pass rush has been good all year despite the injuries. And I say all of that to point out the glaring fact that everyone, you, me, Indianapolis media, everyone was wrong about this Colts secondary. Or at least so far, we've all been wrong about this Colts secondary. Nick Cross, he's been good. Led the Colts in tackles the first 2 weeks. Has been third in tackles, which is probably where he should be considering he's playing strong safety. EJ Speed and Zaire Franklin should always lead the Colts in tackles. Nick Cross being third, though, speaks to his involvement in the run game. He has played well. His coverage has been solid, not great, but definitely better than it has been these first 2 years. Jalen Jones has been the Colts' best corner, and that's been a good thing. Before the year started, if someone had told you that Jalen Jones was going to be CB1 for the Colts, then we all would have freaked out. Would have been like, geez, man, this Colts defense is going to be horrendously bad. But The secondary's been good. Now, they've obviously been aided by a great Colts pass rush, 4 sacks again on Sunday, right? When you have that pass rush, it obviously makes things a little bit easier on your secondary. But either way, they still have to cover for those 2.5, 3 seconds while the Colts pass rush is getting home. So at some point, we've got to give Gus Bradley a little bit of credit. And at some point, we have to give Chris Ballard a little bit of credit. I'm not ready to do it quite yet because we're only 4 weeks into the season. And when you look at, just the quarterbacks that the Colts have played, they haven't been great outside of CJ Stroud, who's obviously one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. They're 3-1, right? But either way, you can only play against, who you can play against. And the Colts secondary has held up time and time again throughout this young season. Okay. They've been incredibly consistent. They've definitely been much better than we all thought that they would be before the year started. You could argue that the pass defense, pass rush, secondary included, has been the most consistent thing from the Colts this year. It's them or the offensive line. Okay, now, once again, it's early. Okay, we're 4 weeks into the season. Something, they could go off the rails quick. They could. But if the Colts defense continues to play like this, because they're why the Colts won on Sunday, forcing turnovers, holding up in the red zone, they are why the big 4th down stop early in the game, they are why the Colts won on Sunday, which I didn't think we'd be saying that very much coming into the year. I didn't think that I would breathe the words the Colts won on Sunday because of their defense. Didn't think I would say that at all, but they did. And, like I said, not ready to apologize quite yet to Chris Ballard, but we ripped him. I did especially all off season for neglecting the back end of this defense. And to Chris Ballard's credit, he trusted the coaching staff. He trusted that, his young players would develop. And they have. Nick Cross has undoubtedly gotten better from last year to this year. Jalen Jones has undoubtedly gotten better from last year to this year. Right? So at some point, we have to give Ballard credit for that. Once again, I don't think it happens quite yet because it's only week 4. But at some point, we have to give him credit. At some point, we have to give Gus Bradley a little bit of credit, right, for putting the secondary in the proper position to defend the pass well. At some point, we got to give Gus Bradley credit for tweaking his defense to allow them to stop the run a little bit. Okay, at some point, we have to give these guys credit because they have figured out a way. Okay, they have figured out a way to take this defense that, I don't care what you say, doesn't have a ton of talent, and they figured out a way for them to be productive. They figured out a way for the Colts defense to be good enough to give them a chance to win. At some point, we have to give Gus Bradley and Chris Ballard the credit that they deserve for helping this defense along, for developing young players, and allowing them to help the Colts win games on Sunday. Another man who deserves a ton of credit is Curt Cignetti, head coach of the Indiana Hoosiers football team. I said it last week. I said it on Friday. I was more excited to watch this Indiana football team play on Saturday than I was to watch any IU basketball game all year, right? And they came through for me. They played well. 42-28 win over Maryland. They're 5-0. They're ranked 23rd, and they're a lot of fun to watch. I've got my thoughts on Indiana's 5-0 start in football when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Often imitated, never duplicated. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Tickets, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
The real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket after a Colts win yesterday. Big IU win on Saturday. Had a blast watching them play. Curt Cignetti, man, doing his thing. Doing a great job helping that team be successful. It's amazing what good head coaches do, man. They show up and they just elevate everything. IU football, 5-0, ranked 23rd in the country. It's awesome. I'm so glad because college football is the best thing ever, and it's just nice to get to see other people enjoy this fantastic sport. It was fantastic on Saturday. A lot of good games. Illinois, Penn State was entertaining. Alabama, Georgia, great game. But Indiana at noon, holding it down. I said it on Friday. I was more excited for this IU football game against Maryland than I was for any IU basketball game all year. Because I know that Curt Cignetti is going to have a plan, and I know that he's going to do a good job coaching his team. Okay? And the Indiana Hoosiers are good. Like, they've got some talent. They really do. I like the quarterback. He didn't have the best day in the world. Curtis Rourke, 22 of 33, 359 yards, which is pretty freaking impressive. Three touchdowns, two picks. Both picks were bad. They were really bad. Okay, on top of that, they fumbled the ball away twice. One from Curtis Rourke, three turnovers on the day from the starting quarterback is not great. And then Kalen Black had one as well. He also had a fumble that he lost. But because Indiana's talented, they were able to overcome these four mistakes that would usually cost you the game. Okay? And their defense, man, their defense is fun. They're fast. They swarm the ball so well. Like, whenever I'm watching defense, especially in college, this isn't really an issue in the NFL because those guys are pros. But in college, you'll watch some teams play, and a tackle will be made, and you'll just see like three other guys on their team around the ball. When you watch Indiana, though, they swarm the football so well. I think that speaks to the physicality. They get off blocks well. They're incredibly fast, right? Like, they just looked so much quicker than Maryland did on Saturday. And they were fun to watch. And they beat Maryland, the best team they've played all year, 42-28, despite those four turnovers. Look, if you turn the football over four times, you should lose every single time that you play. Okay, talk to any coach at any level. If you have four turnovers, you usually don't win. But this this Indiana defense stepped up and was consistently good. They defend the run well. They can get a pass rush with four. Once again, Maryland, how good are they? We don't know. People were telling me that they were good coming into the game, but then I watched that game and I was kind of like, I don't know. But another win for IU, 5-0. They can't continue to turn the ball over and keep winning. Okay, I don't have to explain that. But that wasn't an issue until this week. I really believe that it's something that they'll clean up. They hadn't committed a turnover all year before this game. In the first four games, they hadn't committed a turnover. They committed four, obviously, on Saturday. That's not going to continue. They're going to clean that up. Okay? 5-0 for the first time in a long time. Should be 6-0 after Saturday. Playing Northwestern at 3:30. And they're just fun, man. Like, I just like watching them play football. Physical, fast. They run the ball. Okay, they ran it a ton. Then again, part of that is because they were winning. They ran the football 42 times. 42 times they ran the ball. I mean, it's awesome. It's physical football, and I love it. They had some big, explosive plays down the field. Miles Price, 2 catches for 63 yards. That's 31.5 yards per catch. That's awesome. Elijah Sarrett, 7 receptions, 128 yards. That's 18 yards per reception. Omar Cooper Jr., 4 receptions, 83 yards. That's over 20 yards a reception. It is big plays on offense in the passing game, a consistent rushing attack. Okay, starting running back Tyson Lawton, 19 carries, 93 yards. That's just under 5 yards a carry. So they're going to air it out. They're going to push it down the field when they throw it. They're going to consistently run the football. And defensively, they're going to rally to the ball and tackle well and defend well. Okay, the pass defense, good, not great. 289 yards passing allowed, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Billy Edwards Jr., starting quarterback for Maryland, 26 of 41. So, like, they just played well. Like, outside of the turnovers, I mean, they just played good, consistent football. Indiana, so much fun. They're so much fun. And I'm going to continue to watch every game that they play. Decent chance that they're undefeated, 9-0 when they play Michigan. We'll see. Right? They have Northwestern this week. That should be a win. Even though it's on the road at Northwestern, they aren't very good. So IU should win that game. Then they host Nebraska, who is good. Okay, like that, like when they play Nebraska, that will be the first team that Indiana plays this year that I'm like, yeah, they're about to play a legitimately good football team. That's on October 19th. So we're a few weeks away from that. So that game will be interesting. Like, that's really kind of the next game that I have circled for, let's figure out if Indiana is actually good or not, or if they're just above average, feasting on a bunch of below average teams. Okay, so Nebraska, October 19th. That game will be tough. And then they get Washington, and then they're at Michigan State. Don't care. Winning on the road, especially in the Big Ten, is hard no matter who you're playing against. Okay, so like I think Indiana might be 9-0, 8-1, maybe 7-2 at the worst when they play Michigan. So it's going to be fun to watch this team play. It's been fun just watching them play all year. Hopefully they can continue to get better as the year goes along. Okay? They've been fun to watch. Hopefully Kurt Cignetti can keep it rolling. Speaking of keeping it rolling, one more part of the Colts game on Sunday that I have to address. Braden Smith. Banged up, coming into the game, barely practiced. And then on Sunday, they're like, hey, man, you have to block TJ Watt for an hour. Good luck. And he did. TJ Watt was non-existent on Sunday. He had 2 tackles. That's it. You hardly heard his name called. Okay, obviously it wasn't all Braden Smith, right? He's not blocking him one-on-one the whole game. They're chipping him with tight ends, and they're doubling him, and they're doing all these things to help, Braden Smith block TJ Watt. But they did just an outstanding job not allowing TJ Watt to wreck that game. Okay, because look, as soon as Joe Flacco is in the game, and you know that the quarterback can't move, that's when I was kind of expecting for TJ Watt to show up, right? Because when Anthony Richardson's the starting quarterback, like even if TJ Watt beats Braden Smith, like Anthony Richardson's athletic enough to get away from the pressure, take off, pick up a few yards, and then, whatever, right? It was when Joe Flacco was in the game that I was a little, interested in what was going to happen. But yeah, man, Braden Smith was awesome. The offensive line just continues to be the most consistent part of this offense, creating running lanes. I mean, the Colts ran the ball pretty well against the Steelers. 32 carries, 133 yards. Jonathan Taylor was, 21 carries for 88 yards. He had yet another game where he went over 100 yards from scrimmage, right? 21 carries for 88 yards and a touchdown. And then in the receiving game, he had three receptions for 20 yards. He played well, man. Like, Jonathan Taylor continues to be a focal point of the offense, right? That's 24 touches once again for Jonathan Taylor, which is great, right? Like, that's the number that we want him around. We want him around 25 touches a game. He had 24 against the Bears, and they won, over 100 yards from scrimmage. And then against the Steelers, 24 touches again, over 100 yards from scrimmage. Like, he is playing really well. He sprained his ankle during the game. I believe it's a mild high ankle sprain. Okay, I believe that was what the injury report ended up being. Sprained ankles aren't fun, especially as a running back when you're cutting in and out. So who knows if he'll be available for the game in Jacksonville. Hopefully he is, because, I don't have to explain this to y'all, but they never win in Jacksonville. So they need all hands on deck for that game. The Colts will once again have another dominant edge rusher that they're going to have to deal with in Josh Allen. I think he modified his last name, but you all know who I'm talking about. Edge rusher for Jacksonville, who finished top 5 in the NFL in sacks last year with 17 on the season. Like, they're going to have to deal with him. So once again, it's going to be important for this Colts offensive line to show up and to play well. Okay, like this offensive line's been great. No Ryan Kelly on Sunday either. Backup center in the game, Tanner Bortolini holding it down in the middle, right? He played incredibly well. You know, Ryan Kelly's going into the last year of his contract, or he's playing on the last year of his contract. He's 30. Chris Ballard hasn't extended him yet. Tanner Bortolini showing up, playing well against a good Steelers front seven. Like, that might have been all she wrote for Ryan Kelly, maybe getting a contract extension. Like, Bortolini's ready to go. He's much younger, big dude out of Wisconsin. He played really well yesterday. And so, I don't know. Decent chance that Ryan Kelly's no longer a Colt at the end of this season. He's got a neck thing. Hopefully he's back next week, to play against the Jags, because as great as Bortolini was, I know what I'm getting with Kelly. Hopefully he's able to go and he's able to play on this upcoming Sunday. Monday Night Football tonight. There's 2 games, but there's really only one. And I say this as, a Miami Dolphins fan at heart. The Dolphins play the Titans tonight. That game's going to be ugly. That game starts at 7:30. But the real game that I will be watching and tuned into, Seattle is playing against Detroit. That game should be awesome. Seattle 3-0, undefeated. I told you before the season started that the Seattle Seahawks were going to be good this year, and they have delivered for me, okay? They're playing incredibly well. They're on the road at Detroit. That game starts at 8:15. Titans at Dolphins. Tyler Huntley starting for Miami. I don't know. We'll see. Will Levis. Honestly, I'm going to watch, obviously, the Titans and Dolphins game at least a little bit. I'm definitely going to watch when the Titans have the ball, because I cannot wait for the atrocious Will Levis interception or fumble, because you know what's coming. He's going to commit some stupid penalty, some stupid turnover. And I can't wait. I can't wait to watch what awful turnover Will Levis commits tonight. He's done one every single week. Otter Creek, I am a Dolphins fan. I'm just realistic. I know that they're bad. I don't want to watch Tyler Huntley play quarterback. I'd rather watch Geno Smith and Jared Goff than Tyler Huntley and Will Levis. Okay? When my team's bad, I don't watch. Simple as that. So, Dolphins Titans tonight at 7:30. Seahawks Lions tonight at 8:15. That's the game I've got circled. Should be a good, fun game to watch. That's going to do it for the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to listen. Head over to YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. Subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can watch the live streams. The Dan Dockett Show is coming your way here in about 5 minutes. I'll be on the air tomorrow from 10 till noon. I will talk to you guys then. Have a good one.